Welcome. This is Leading with Spirit, the show that gives you an in-depth look at topics like what it takes to navigate your spiritual journey, how to heal yourself and grow your spiritual gifts, and balanced practices to expand your business and your spiritual leadership. I'm your host, Spirit Bird, shamanic teacher, healer, and author, here to guide you on your journey to becoming your most potent spiritual leader. Hello and welcome back to Leading with Spirit. I'm your host, Spirit Bird, Master Shaman and Plant Medicine Guide. And today we're diving into the stages of the healing journey. We'll be talking about the path to inner mastery and really the impact of spiritual healing in your personal and professional life in general. And I'll also be giving a few notes on the stages of the healing journey and how it relates to the psychedelic journey as well. So this episode is especially geared towards spiritual practitioners who want to be a better guide and support your clients. But if you are here for your personal reasons, you're going to get a lot out of this episode too, especially if you're exploring working with plant medicine or you're just on a healing journey. You're going to get a lot of context and understanding about the process that you're in and what's ahead to help you navigate where you'll be headed. So I'll also be sharing an exciting new offer that's fun and free. So stay tuned to the end when I talk more about that. So let's dive right into it. Okay, so let's just talk about the healing journey in general. As spiritual practitioners, understanding the healing journey is crucial, of course, for guiding your clients and supporting your clients. The healing journey leads individuals from this place of pain, confusion, or fragmentation into one of wholeness and clarity and inner peace. So when somebody is initiated into a healing journey, it is moving them from a place where basically in some way they're scattered. Either part of them is suppressed or parts of themselves are sort of like scattered about, or they're, in a lot of doubt or confusion. Right? This is that fragmentation process. So we're actually gathering those parts and kind of bringing them all together and bringing them back and down into you as a person. And this is what creates the wholeness, which clarity is a direct effect of that wholeness. And really it creates this sense of inner peace, which is super valuable. Of course, we're not going to make it through life where like there's nothing ever wrong or we don't ever have any emotions or any challenges. Really what inner peace means is that you have the understanding and the skills to navigate that without having to go back into your fragmented version. So it's a very different way of experiencing life. And it obviously creates a lot of personal satisfaction so that you can experience more joy in your life. So by recognizing and understanding the stages of this journey, as a practitioner, we can offer more precise and compassionate guidance for our clients, right? This is where it's helpful, if you're shifting from serving or offering like single sessions or single hour sessions. Oftentimes, even though it's super helpful or can be super powerful, we're sort of just giving people bite-sized information of what they need or just clues on their journey. And what is really more effective and beneficial for individuals is to understand the whole process, like the whole context of what they're going to be going through. So this helps them, one, because they're able to be more patient in their healing process because they can see where it's going and they can like know where they are on the journey. So it takes out, even though there's still mystery in the process, it takes out a lot of the like confusion and the anxiety of like what's happening to me. It gives them context to understand what's happening so that they can actually just go through the journey. So that is super helpful for your clients. And then also you can act as a better guide because you'll be able to take them through that whole process instead of just giving them the bite-sized information. And what will happen a lot for people when they don't commit to somebody that can help them through the whole process or see the whole process, they end up getting information from a lot of different sources, which actually just causes confusion in their system and often keeps them stuck in one of the stages of the healing journey. So they're not able to reap the benefits of what life is inviting them into. So if you're a practitioner, definitely keep that in mind. If you're not already applying this method to your business, it might be something really helpful for you or for something for you to look at is like, okay, what's the whole process and how can I offer that so my clients can have better results and a better experience? And as you grow in your spiritual practice, the more you understand this journey and how it shows up differently for different people, right? Because the stages are pretty much the same, but what that looks like varies. And I'll share more about that later in the episode. So as you get better at seeing that and understanding how it shows up for different people, you're better able to see and guide them through the process for the best outcome for that individual and what that person is designed to do. If you aren't a spiritual practitioner, you still get great benefits from understanding this process, right? Again, because you'll have context and understanding, which limits confusion in the process. And of course, like healing and growth is challenging enough on its own, let alone when you have no context for what's happening. So definitely take this to heart. And also just take to heart that you do get permission to get a guide through your healing process. You really can't underestimate the power of somebody that can help you all the way through the process. So investing in your inner growth is almost never fails. It's one of the best ways. It's one of the best returns on investment you can ever do. And there's a lot of places along the journey that it's easy to get spiraled out on. So don't underestimate your value and receiving support in this area. Okay, that being said, let's get into the stages. So stage one, awakening, of course. So the stage of awakening is when you start to realize that something in your life needs to change. So this awareness can be triggered by lots of things. A significant life event. It can be triggered by a personal crisis, or it can be triggered by this like growing sense of dissatisfaction that kind of builds up on itself. It can also get triggered by a psychedelic experience, of course. And also, I actually know a lot of people who have had a spontaneous awakening, meaning it didn't really seem to be triggered by anything in particular. There wasn't anything significant in their life happening. They weren't on any sort of like psychedelic or any even kind of medication. They might have just been sitting at home eating their dinner, and boom, like big awakening happens. Um, Also, people can have awakenings related to extraterrestrial experiences as well. So there's lots of different ways that you might become awakened. And just a note on that is we use the term awakening a lot, and some people will reference like when they had their awakening. And for many of us, there was like a more significant moment, but just know that throughout your whole life, you will have multiple awakenings. Yeah. So as practitioners, you can help your clients identify this awakening so they have context and can understand that that is what's happening to them and support them as they become more aware of their wounds and their patterns. So essentially, with this healing journey, what the whole process is, let me back up a step. What this whole process is life wants to show us a gift that we have or wants to show us a new way of existing and living. And so in order to do that, it starts with an awakening and it's sort of like opening this doorway for us. And when we walk through this hallway, which is the stages of healing, when we come out to the other side, we get to experience the gift of what we just went through. So just to kind of give you some context for that as well. So during the awakening phase, usually there's like a more meta piece where part of your awakening is related to seeing something you didn't see before and more in the external. So like your worldview changes, maybe your priorities change, or maybe your spirituality opened up suddenly, maybe your gifts opened up suddenly. Oftentimes, actually, this process is confusing and overwhelming. Your energy starts changing, what you care about starts changing, and it can be exhilarating and it can be frightening, especially if part of the awakening includes your spiritual gifts opening up. And by the way, I have a free guide. It's the ultimate guide for spiritual gifts. I'm going to leave that link in the show notes. It might be super helpful for you if you're here, if you started to experience your spiritual gifts and you're not really sure what to do with that, how to use them, how that relates to your purpose. That's all in this ultimate guide that I created for you. But anyway, so yeah, this experience can be overwhelming and frightening. Not everybody will experience that way. For a lot of people, it's a lot of fun. So when you awaken, you'll have this like external seeing that you didn't see before, But then part of this is you're also going to start experiencing or noticing a pattern in your life that you didn't notice before, something that seems to be getting in the way of your goals or your actualization, something that seems to be repeating and kind of keeping you stuck. As spiritual guides, it's critical that we help our clients see that for sure. That's part of the awakening process. But it's really important as a guide to help them see that negative pattern, so to speak, without having to go into the shame or the hatred for the fact that that's how they used to be. And I'm going to go into this. This brings me actually to the next stage. So stage number 2 is seeking. In the seeking stage, you begin exploring and searching for answers. You might kind of feel like a sponge, like absorbing and soaking everything up on this particular subject or theme that your healing process is about. And of course, you're looking for tools to help you heal in this process. So this is where, as practitioners, our expertise is like, I mean, it's invaluable, right? And so a place to watch, to use caution, especially if you're trying to navigate this healing journey yourself, is to be careful with where you're sourcing your information. There's lots of really great resources out there. Where it can get off track is if you're not working like with one person or one group that has kind of a cohesive structure, then you can get a lot of conflicting information, especially if you're sourcing your information from like social media or from like bite-sized pieces of content. If you're consuming small pieces of content, then you don't get the greater context of what that content was written about. So, for example, you might see one meme that in one sentence says this, you see another meme that in a sentence says that, kind of says the opposite, and you're like, which one is it? And now you're confused, and now you're kind of spiraling out into the minutia of stuff, when actually what would be more helpful is for you to just stay in kind of like one frame or one zone or one context, at least initially, so that you can get all of the information from there instead of these pieces that may be complementary, but again, you don't have the greater context of how and why, and so it actually just creates more confusion. So again, as a practitioner, though, this is where we can be invaluable because we can provide proper resources, and that's everything from recommending books, from referring people to other courses, to giving spiritual practices. We can provide whatever is relevant to assist our clients in gathering the knowledge and the tools they need. And as guides, we have the seeing and the experience to know what will actually be helpful for them. I want to add here that I speak a lot about spiritual gifts in my work in general, right? And I go into great detail about this piece on Magic as Fuck, my event, and also in Next Level Healer, I go into this piece as well. So your role as a guide isn't just referencing outside sources or authors, of course. It's to share your own personal experiences, right? There's a piece of your work that's about your modality, but there's a large piece of your work that's about allowing your life experiences to come through in your teachings. That's what attracts people to you, and that's what they resonate with. It's part of the healer's journey and the practitioner's journey to overcome your fear about sharing your spiritual side, sharing your celebrations, sharing your failures, and basically being transparent. That's part of the healer's process, so that you can call in the people that need the knowledge and the information that you have, right? But you can also use your experience in your client sessions to guide them. And it's way more powerful when they know you actually embody the wisdom of the experience that will help them, instead of just knowing a little bit about it or having information about it. And so again, I talk a lot about, when I say spiritual gifts, I go into a lot more detail in Magic as Fuck and Next Level Healer. But by spiritual gifts, I don't just mean the clairs, right? I mean like where I think of it as this intersection of where your spiritual knowledge, the experience that you've actually have in life, lines up or intersects with your personal life experience. So your spiritual knowledge, what you know, your gifts, cosmology, mythology, that kind of thing, where that lines up with your personal life experience, that truly is where your medicine, like that's your medicine right there. So anyway, yeah, make sure that you use that. That's one of the main reasons that people choose to work with you, is because they want your specific medicine. Another note about the seeking stage, because awakening is often such a big experience, and because it's very easy for people to slip into shaming their past self at this stage, right? We just talked about in the awakening, oftentimes you see a pattern or your beliefs change. And so when that happens, what might also be revealed is how it was negatively affecting you. So when your client sees that, they might slip into shame over the choices that they made. As a guide, remember that people often overcompensate when they get to this stage. So be a little extra cautious here as well. Again, if you're an individual, and definitely be aware of this if you're a guide, that individuals will try to overcorrect for their past self in lots of ways, like leaping into a new career, like ending relationships with friends or family prematurely, or again, overcompensating for how they used to be. For example, if you used to be super ambitious, maybe you were really career driven, you might overcorrect once you awaken and you see that there's more to life than that. You might overcorrect. And so what that looks like could be avoiding taking on a big project, avoiding commitment, avoiding defining new goals, because now you've gone to this other extreme where anything that you used to associate with being ambitious, you are now seeing as wrong or damaging. And it's actually not true. The goal here is actually to find the balance between the two. Another example might be like maybe you used to be really promiscuous, right? Maybe you kind of had a wild lifestyle, and then you awakened and you saw how you were using sexuality, and now you're overcorrecting by trying to be spiritually pure, right? That's not the purpose of the healing journey at all. And again, this is where you as a guide, by the way, if you are a guide and you like playing with marketing or communicating your value, for sure, it's important to emphasize things like this, because what will happen if people don't have your services is they'll get caught in the overload of information that's available, and they might jump from modality to modality or person to person, getting bite-sized pieces and not getting the true depth of the information that they need. And so for you as a spiritual guide, you actually can help them find that center and keep them from going too far out. And so I see this a lot with people actually where they have an awakening, they're suddenly aware of a bigger spiritual truth, and then they get caught in kind of like shallow or superficial spiritual practices that have them spiritually bypass, or have them basically like all of the negative things from Christianity get like transferred into the new spiritual way, right? And so this looks like trying to be spiritually pure, which is the opposite of what the healing journey is trying to lead you to. Another example is if you used to, maybe you had terrible boundaries, right? So you always said yes, even if you didn't want to, you always overgave. And then suddenly you had an awakening, and now you're starting to see that negative pattern. And so you're mad, right? You're mad at all of the things that it cost you, or that you had to do, or felt like you had to do. Maybe you're mad at the people that you felt crossed your boundaries, right? And so what will happen here, people want to overcompensate for that part of themselves that they see as negative or weak. And so they might overcompensate by basically seeing everything as a boundary violation, or as not being safe, even when that's not true, right? And so again, the point isn't to go to the other extreme. Although, it can be worthwhile, it needs to be brief, right? If you've been in one place before, it's really natural to give yourself a little bit of time to explore the other side, right? But you've got to come back to the center. And so your job as a spiritual practitioner is to make sure that that happens and not allow them to continue to spiral out on the other extreme. This is where damage happens. This is where people miss out on their true purpose. because they're trying to overcompensate for a part of them when actually that part of them did have a purpose, right? This is where people can get caught or stuck or blocked because they're now in this other extreme. So they really didn't make any progress. They just sort of just switched sides or switched teams. They're kind of repeating the same cycle, just like the opposite side of it. So you definitely want to be able to help your client navigate that space and kind of continue to bring them back to center, because that's where the power comes in, right? That's where it gets like fun and exciting, and the gifts come through and they make breakthroughs in their life. So bring your clients back to that, find that balance so they can actually connect and tap into that power. The last note, I do want to make one note on the seeking stage, and it's specifically for plant medicine practitioners. This would probably be helpful information for you too if you're exploring working with plant medicine. So, plant medicine often creates awakenings for people, right? And so people that are new to working with psychedelics are often so excited about their new experiences and their new discoveries that if you're a practitioner, you have to be extra aware here. For sure, you need to help them understand and navigate like that they're in awakening right now and that there are stages ahead. So to not make drastic decisions for sure, right? Because this is what will happen in awakening. If you get stuck in the awakening phase and don't go through the next stages, same thing can happen. Your worldview is changed. You make a bunch of drastic changes and you can get in this trap where you're frustrated that people don't see the worldview the way you do, right? And so at any of these stages that I talk about today, it is easy to get stuck in them. And we need to make it all the way through again in order to actually have the full process healed to actually access those gifts. So a lot of times people that are new to psychedelics, it's basically an awakening. And if they get stuck there, or they get stuck in the next stage, the seeking stage, what that looks like is now they're like jumping from container to container to container in the same way that people might jump from content to content or modality to modality. And what we actually need is to help people come all the way through. This is another one of the reasons that if you're a practitioner, I highly encourage you to actually have like programs and processes rather than single sessions, because people need to go all the way through the transformational process. And a lot of times when they stop halfway through, now they're starting over, they're going to another container and they're starting the process all over again. So just a side note on that. And also, if you've worked with plant medicines, they're very inspiring. They're very incredible, powerful beings. And so it's not uncommon to work with them a few times and think like, wow, this changed my life. I want to do this. Like, I want to do this for work. I want to facilitate it. And I love that you have that excitement. But do know that the first couple of years of plant medicine work, when you're doing it personally, although I'm sure you'll hit challenges, are very different than when you get a few more years into it. And so it's really only in like 3 years, 3 to 5, that you start to open things up in a very different way. And not everybody needs to work with psychedelics for that long. But if you're considering being a practitioner, do know that you should work with the plant medicine for yourself, at least for 3 years, but probably better for 3 to 5 before you even realize like what the work actually is, like what you're actually going to be holding people through. So it's not to discourage you. It's just like really like we get into that seeking phase, that starry eye phase, and if we're not being guided properly, you might make a quick decision about what you want to do and not actually have all the information you need to navigate that space. And also, if you're a practitioner, it's important that you communicate that to your people as well, that they understand that even though maybe they had 2 experiences with you, they were amazing, they've unlocked amazing things, they're not ready to hold this for other people yet. They have, respectfully, no idea what they're talking about. And how could they? They've only done a couple, right? So just be aware here that seeking stage, a lot of people can get stuck there with plant medicine too. Um, and I also have a free guide. It's a free checklist on your readiness to be a psychedelic facilitator. So that's if you're considering that, or maybe if you've done some training, but you're really not sure if you're ready yet or what the next step is. I'll leave a link for that in the show notes. It's going to be super helpful for you. It's just like a really quick rundown, and that's going to help you identify, what areas you actually are good. You got it there, and what areas you need a little bit more guidance or training before you're holding other people. Okay, so that being said, let's move to stage 3. So stage 3 is processing. The processing stage involves confronting wounds, facing fears, and for sure processing emotions. So this can be an intense period, and our role is to, as a guide, is to offer a safe and supportive environment for our clients. This can be through therapeutic techniques, through energy work, through compassionate listening. Basically, our job here as practitioners is to help them deep dive into their subconscious and allow the emotions to move through and to access the root causes of their pain, right? When it comes to psychedelics, again, this just talking about the difference between the first couple years versus the second couple years. While most people have major ahas right away when they're working with psychedelics, the deep processing stage gets very heavy in year 3 to 5. It also has incredible benefits, but it's very heavy. So the tools and the strategy that I teach in shaman school is especially supportive for this stage in the healing process and for the next. A couple tips for you here. I encourage your clients to express their thoughts. Of course, and you should encourage your clients to express their thoughts, to express their feelings, whether that's in a session with you, whether that's in a qualified group of support, whether it's journaling or through the arts. The arts are an amazing way to express your feelings. A lot of times, what holds people back from the processing stage here, well, one, there's the big old shame that can often keep you from truly expressing or processing your emotions. And yeah, that the way that shame comes in can look like you would be embarrassed if somebody found out, or it can also just feel like you're embarrassed that you have those feelings in the first place. Maybe they feel like they're really negative or they're really like low vibe, or you shouldn't feel that way, but you do. And so this is where processing is so important, is because oftentimes when you express it, then they actually just pass through you. When you don't express it, but you feel it a little bit, it's like holding on to them. So you're actually keeping them trapped in you. So the processing stage is all about actually releasing these emotions and also getting an understanding of why we have our reactions and the root cause of them in our life. Again, if you are an individual, if you're not a practitioner, make sure to get guidance here as well. Sometimes the stage of processing includes very intense emotions, which is great. That's part of the beauty of it. But it can be harmful or counterproductive if you don't know how to process them and in a healthy way. So for example, what a lot of people do, a lot of people will try to take it on themselves. They'll like just try to get through it themselves. I want to do a whole nother episode on this because I'm like totally on my soapbox about this lately. For some reason, it seems like people feel like they're better if they can do it on their own. And even practitioners have had lots of those conversations lately where practitioners feel like they should be able to do it on their own for them to be good or the best. And it's like, that's not how this works at all. But that's for another time. So, right, if you just kind of keep it to yourself, then you're not processing at all. Another mistake that a lot of people make is they process through their friends. And your friends, it's amazing if you have friends that can hold it. So if you do, then that's great. Definitely using that as a resource. But if you don't, be careful here, because if they don't actually know how to hold your emotions or have this context of the stages of healing and what you're going through, then they might not be able to hold them in a healthy way. And it could actually just be adding fuel to the fire instead of allowing you to actually process. So make sure you process with people that really know how to hold the context of what you're going through and can see the shadow side of things. Actually, something just popped into my head. Like years ago, I was trying to, I uncovered this shame piece around manipulating people in my past. It was when I was a teenager, and it certainly wasn't all the time, but there were definitely some times that I used what I was going through to my advantage, right? I used it to manipulate, or at least try to. And so I had some shame for it for a while. Probably most of the shame was there because of how much I tried to not have it, how much I suppressed it, right? And so I suppressed it for a lot of my life, tried to deny that I was like that or that it happened. And then when I was really started to look at it and really ready to process it, I had trouble actually releasing it because you can't release the shame without acknowledging it. But also, when I would try to acknowledge the situation, when I was doing it around friends that weren't, or even some practitioners that weren't quite ready to hold it, and it wasn't some big process, like it wasn't like a big process, like I was being really big or emotional. It was just like I just needed to say it and let it be heard, is all. I just needed somebody else to witness this. And when I would share it, what would happen is people would try to make me feel better. They'd be like, well, you were young, you didn't know, or everybody does that, or that's what teenagers do, or, yeah, but you were going through a lot. And so I know they meant well, but this was actually blocking my ability to process it. So it's just an example that popped into my head about, the importance of really having the right kind of group to process your emotions with. Um, and it's incredibly powerful because when I put it down for a while, and then when it came back up, I was looking at another piece, it came back up, and I was like kind of ready to process it again. And I happened to be in the right place for the right support where they were able to receive it and actually just listen and let it land. And there was no judgment, and there was also no trying to excuse it. And so that was like a extremely healing process for me because I could actually just let it move through me. I'll give you one more example here. So I'm going to use relationships, I guess. If you were going through a toxic relationship or a major breakup, and I mean, I kind of laugh because I know toxic is a big famous word right now. I don't really like using it. I feel like it suggests that somebody is a perpetrator and somebody else is a victim, when in reality, toxic takes two. But also, when I say toxic relationship, I know you know exactly what I'm talking about. So, in context of having the right support in this processing phase, um, let's say you've been through a toxic relationship, you're now out of the relationship. There are two stages for kind of finding closure from that experience. The first, for most people, the first is you need to be angry, right? You need to be pissed off that it happened. You need to be pissed off at that person. Um, it helps you reorient to yourself and acknowledge what happened was wrong, right? So this is the first stage that's really important. The second stage after that is you need to be available for the lessons, because even though what they did, you might have been wrong, or maybe you perceived it as being wrong, you also had a part in it happening, and you want to understand what that part is so you can work on not repeating it. And so if you are processing using friends, again, sometimes they mean well, but they don't have that awareness of these two stages, right? And so what they might actually unintentionally do is keep you trapped in the first stage. And if you're trapped in the first stage, you don't grow. And what that looks like in the context of a relationship is maybe you got through, you got angry, but now you're starting to see how your patterns played a part in it. You don't want to repeat it. And kind of like in my last example, when you bring it up, your friends like try to make you feel better. And they're like, like screw him. He was the worst. Or like, don't even go there. Like, he didn't deserve you, that kind of thing, right? So they're actually blocking your ability to process fully through this stage. So that brings me to stage 4 in the healing and the stages of healing, and that's integration. Okay, so during integration, or during the integration stage, uh, basically you begin to incorporate the insights and lessons that you've learned into your daily life. Your clients need to start making healthier choices, setting boundaries. They'll start to cultivate new habits, making these, like, implementing what they've learned into their life to support their well-being, right? That's what we're working on. So Our guidance as a practitioner can help them create that new way of being that aligns with their true self, which is to me where a lot of the fun comes in. It's where you actually get to see and start reaping the rewards from all of the work that they've been doing. And honestly, without integration, any of the stuff that comes before it doesn't matter. Your awakening, if you can't integrate it, you'll get stuck. Basically, any stage, like I said, at any stage, you can easily get stuck in. This is why we often work with guides. Any stage you can get stuck in. And if we don't get through integration, then it doesn't matter how much you learned or how amazing the experience was. It kind of doesn't matter, right? And I have an example of this actually. He said it really well. So I was working with a student recently on a spiritual business. So we had already done the work around like parts of his inner healing. We had done the work around cultivating his gifts. We'd done the work around understanding how to use that in a practice. And now he was really ready to like get clear on what his offer was and what he's sharing. And so we actually pinned down an offer and a business model, and we mapped the whole thing out. He was able to see it. He could see how how it would actually work. He could see how it was going to grow with him over time and expand down the road. And it was really exciting to uncover, the unique work he was meant to do and to chart out his path. And like you could actually see like how it was going to compound on itself and turn into high income months really quickly. And I remember in the excitement, he also said to me, he said, "Whoa, I see now how it's time to do the homework instead of just consuming content." Of course, right? That's brilliant. Of course. Yes, it's so important. So integration really is the step that requires action and implementation, right? And in that example, he had at that point the embodiment of the work he does and the embodiment of the journey. But then he also had a lot of information. He was consuming so much content. He had just information about things. He needed to actually take action and implement some of them. Um, if you if you don't know what you need to implement or how or where, again, this is where I highly encourage you to get a guide, a good integration specialist, whether you've worked with plant medicine or not, by the way. Plant integration is a popular term used with plant medicine, but it's a needed part of every healing process. So if you don't really have context, make sure you find somebody that can help you get that. And so tips for you here, especially for a practitioner. But even if you're not, number one, for sure, keep it simple. It's much harder to integrate something that's really big. And honestly, it slows you down. It is much faster to integrate pieces little by little. And bonus points if you are integrating, if you can kind of stay sort of in like one field, instead of being in a bunch of different groups that might have different seeings or might conflict with each other on, how to best support you. But anyway, so keep it simple. Give yourself grace for sure. If you're a practitioner, also give your people grace. Remember that like your main goal in integration here is not to never do the negative pattern again or never do the bad thing again. The main goal in integration is to be aware when you're acting in the old way, right? That's the primary purpose. And then as you do that, gradually over time, your awareness starts to allow you to just kind of gently redirect yourself when you get to those moments. And as you gently redirect yourself, what this allows your consciousness to do and your energy to do is adjust to the new information it's receiving. So our negative pattern is usually is based on a wound, right? And the information we learned from that wound. And the way it comes out is it causes problems in our lives because we're trying to prevent that pain from happening again. And so we are often unconscious of these patterns that we're doing. Then we go through an awakening. We realize that the patterns are there, or we know there's something we need to look at. We go through the seeking phase, then we go through the processing of the source of this, and now we need to actually make changes and take those steps in our life. So as you gently redirect those you become aware of them and then slightly redirect them, you're giving your consciousness the information it needs to realize that what you were doing before that wasn't working, isn't working. And more importantly, that what you're doing now is actually safe, right? And typically what was happening before, you felt like you couldn't choose any other option because it wouldn't be safe. And so what we're doing in this integration process is we're showing ourselves that actually there's a very big difference between what might feel uncomfortable and what is actually unsafe. And a lot of times our subconscious labels something as unsafe when in reality it's just uncomfortable. Through integration, you get to teach your consciousness that it's just uncomfortable, it's not actually unsafe. And that's when you start to reap the deep, profound rewards of your effort, right? That's when you actually get to see the changes in your life and it to affect your life and those around you. So then that leads us to the fifth stage, which is mastery. The final stage, mastery, of course, it is an ongoing process. So let me back up again, remembering that the stages of the healing journey, and what's happening here is life is opening up a doorway so that you can master something and so that you can uncover your gifts and how to use them. And the way it does it is by taking a theme or taking a pattern or something that's been happening in your life. And the healing journey is about undoing that pattern, essentially, right? Gaining this new understanding of it, being able to take your new viewpoint and integrate it into your life. And so mastery is like when you are completing that process. So now we're going to be constantly going through healing processes all our life. We're going to be taking different themes, exploring different parts of ourselves. And then sometimes we'll also repeat one because we're ready for a new level of it, even if we've already previously, quote unquote, mastered it, right? But really, this mastery, I think of it as being more attuned to the process that we're in, kind of like just being a wave in the ocean and understanding that like mastery is about this healing stage over and over and over again. And that inner peace with like being aware of what's happening, being aware, having context and understanding so that we can maintain our center in those times instead of fragmenting again. So mastery, of course, is also about living in alignment with your true self, continuously growing and evolving, embracing your strengths, acknowledging your progress, and for sure being committed to this lifelong self-improvement. Not because you're bad or you need fixed, but because it's fun and exciting and your life gets better when you do it. So each individual, of course, has their own set of gifts, and each individual has their own kind of curriculum or blueprint about what they're here this life to experience. So again, you might work on various themes throughout your life, and there's going to be related to, again, what you're here to learn. And yeah, and as you work on those, you begin to actually open up the gifts. That new awareness, the awakening that happens, the reward at the end is in fact the gifts. And so through this process of really like being kind of in this wave of the healing journey, you essentially like the mastery process itself is kind of going through cycle and cycle of healing journey. And each time you're essentially buffing out the illusions of where you hold yourself back, revealing your gifts and allowing you to be centered, aligned, and in your power. And it's going through all these stages that you truly reach mastery, right? And often you repeat the cycle. This is part of the mastery process for new lessons, for new awareness, elevating your spiritual journey overall. So as practitioners, having the right tools and knowledge to support your clients is totally essential. And this is the part that I was so excited to share with you, a new offer that I have. So I want to introduce you to the Inner Mastery Matrix course. So this course is specifically designed to help your clients discover their unique inner mastery archetype. And what that will do is offer profound insights into their true selves, their gifts, their life purpose, and also give you tools that the person with that unique archetype needs to accomplish that, Right. So the inner mastery archetype is broken down into several types, right? And so each blueprint has kind of its own set of wounds, its own set of gifts, and its own pathway to access those gifts. What is amazing about the inner mastery matrix, as opposed to just learning about each archetype, is that you actually learn how they're related to each other and how they're in relationship with each other. So it's truly expansive for yourself, of course. Even if you're a practitioner, you're going to learn a lot about yourself for sure, and how you relate to others. But you're also going to be able to relate in a different way to your clients, and again, be able to see a more specific pathway for them. You'll discover the intricacies of these various blueprints, how they show up in you, how the blueprint shows up in your clients, how they relate to each other. You'll discover really what to watch for on your client's journey and in your own journey. And of course, how to guide them to mastery. So it's like human design, except there's a greater spiritual context for what's happening and your purpose, your divine purpose, your function in the collective. Yeah, it's like the Enneagram and Myers-Briggs in the same way, where there are some pieces that tend to be true for most people, but what they don't include is this like function, this divine purpose, what that actually means. Um, it's also a lot of fun, and you get to get you started. I made this free assessment, and that's the fun part I wanted to share. This is free. And that assessment will identify your individual inner mastery archetype, and it's going to give you a little breakdown of what your gifts are and what your pathway is to reaching those gifts. So super fun. I'll for sure include that link in the show notes as well. Or you can go to Holton Healing Arts /archetypes to take that assessment. If it resonates for you from there, you'll have a couple different options for where to take it. One actually being a individual course, super fun to activate your gifts. And it's got all kinds of resources to learn how to incorporate this archetype into your life. But the other course, of course, is the one I'm talking about, which is the Inner Mastery Matrix. So that's really understanding all of the archetypes, how they show up in your life, how they show up in your clients, how to support your clients through them, and how they're related together. So again, if you're a practitioner, for sure, you'll gain insights into your clients' divine mission and their personal gifts, allowing for you to give them like more effective and personalized guidance. You can be able to see the pathway that they're on for them and help them walk that path. And of course, will increase your client connection as well, because you'll be able to easily connect to their unique gifts and their unique talents and understand what they need in their healing journey, like how to be the most effective communicator with them. Of course, it's going to bring a lot of empowerment, personal empowerment in your practice and confidence in your practice, because it's going to equip you with the knowledge to facilitate these profound transformations in your clients. It will enhance your effectiveness as a healer or a coach or a therapist. And it will also give you faster transformations with them. And of course, this is going to just help your professional advancement in general, because you'll elevate your practice, you'll be able to reach higher end clients, you'll be more confident, and you'll be more effective. And also you'll know a lot more about individuals, so you can speak more directly to individuals' pain and what they're going through. And of course, what I love about this work the most is a lot of the archetype systems kind of just do a personality breakdown, but this is really focused on how to access the gifts instead of just putting you in a box, right? And so where a lot of programs hyper-focus on healing your wounds, this is indeed part of it, but it's from the frame of accessing your gifts. And actually, it made me think of one of my students. She was a somatic coach, and I remember like her particular journey, like when she discovered she was the actualizer, it was like its own awakening in and of itself. This is often what happens for people when they work with the inner mastery archetypes, is it's like its own inner awakening. And so it quickly allowed her to see actually her gifts that she wasn't seeing before, that she was overlooking, that she was bypassing. And then she also got to learn like why she was overlooking and bypassing them, and like what wounds were causing that so she could heal those wounds. And of course, more importantly, actually step into the gifts. And she went from like being honestly like pretty lost. She was working, but she was hopping from like job to job to job. She was not feeling very comfortable with herself. She was kind of insecure, to landing a new job, and elevating her career. And she now has that confidence and clarity to not only guide others, but to feel like she's actually home and actually herself in the world. So, as a spiritual practitioner, you'll find yourself at a crossroads. Behind you are the traditional methods and tools you may have been using. Behind you is the old way you learned, or the old model, which has you kind of just giving people bite-sized pieces or band-aids. And ahead lies a path of deeper understanding, enhanced client relationships, and personal and professional growth. The choices you make now can shape your practice in really profound ways. So I highly recommend the Inner Mastery Matrix course. I'll also leave the link for that for you in the show notes as well. But again, more importantly and more fun, I want to invite you to take the Inner Mastery assessment. Again, that'll give you a quick download of your gifts and what you need to do or what you need to overcome to access them. Thank you so much for joining me again on Leading with Spirit. Remember, the path to mastery, it is a lifelong journey and it can be a lot of fun. Be the wave rolling around in the ocean. And every step you take, it really brings you closer to your true self. It's fun, it's rewarding, it's challenging. The healing journey itself, each individual one, and the process as a whole truly is a dream weaver. It's connecting moments in your life to people in your life, connecting that to professional upgrades, and matching it all with personal fulfillment, with community change. So it's an incredible process. Stay tuned for our next episode. Until then, keep exploring, healing, and growing. I love you, and I'll see you next time. Have you been hearing the call to expand your spiritual gifts and step into your next level of conscious leadership? If you're a coach, healer, or a spiritual leader, you can learn more about Shaman School and growing your spiritual business on our website, holtonhealingarts.com, or send me a DM at Holton Healing Arts. Welcome to today's Q&A episode, where we explore questions about spiritual paths, intuitive gifts, growing a spiritual business, and shamanism. Do you have a question for us? Send us a DM at Holton Healing Arts. This question is from Kendra. Kendra is part of our Leading with Spirit Facebook group, and her question is, how do I accept the gifts I have with all the negativity I feel when I try to talk to people close to me? And thank you so much for the question, Kendra. I feel you on that one, and I know this is a place where you're not alone in feeling pain and frustration for not being seen and understood in your gifts. There is actually a simple solution, although it sometimes takes a while for you to see the direct effects from the people that maybe you want to have see you the most. And that's that truly being seen in your gifts is more about you knowing them and how to use them and accepting them and seeing the value yourself. If you're not fully connected to the value that they truly offer, then you might find yourself stuck in a place where you're hoping other people or wishing that other people would see the value, and it's actually the reverse that allows it to be true. And so one of the best ways to do that, well, one is to just double check to see if you have any energy that might be kind of trying to convince people of your worth and of your value. We definitely don't want to give our energy to that desire. Instead, we want to make it more focused on what comes from within and allow the people that can see us to actually see us. So one of the ways that you do that is by actually using your gifts. And you can do that by working with clients. You can do that through intuitive courses and practice. And, today I talked about the stages of healing, and they're very much part of incorporating your gifts as well, where you do actually like integrate them into your everyday life, where you actually test out, using them, and for no other purpose than for your own joy and your own pleasure. That's for sure what always comes first. In fact, it made me think of a memory. I remember years ago, I just started dating someone, and he was trying to surprise me with something. He was going to take me somewhere, actually. And so I hopped in the car with him, and I was like, "Where are we going?" And he's like, "Oh, I'm going to surprise you." And we got on the highway, and I just kind of randomly, spontaneously thought about this one restaurant that I had seen before. And I really innocently just started talking about it because I don't know why, because getting on the highway, we could have gone lots of different places, but for some reason that place popped into my head. And I remember him kind of like freezing, and he like looked at me like he was almost frightened, and he was like, "How the heck did you know that's where we're going?" And I just remember laughing. I really didn't mean to try to guess where we were going. It just popped into my head. It's part of my gifts. I'm hyper like in tune with information that's coming into the field. And so I actually ended up feeling very seen in my gifts in that relationship, even though he wasn't necessarily into the spiritual world. He wasn't necessarily into this kind of work. I just did it because it was part of who I am and because it brought me joy. And so I felt very seen from him because I didn't need him to see me. So I know that that can be frustrating when you really, really, really want to be seen, especially by certain people. And do know that the best way to navigate that space, especially if you're met with negativity, is to kind of let it go. Don't try to convince anybody that it's important or special. Not everybody is going to get this work. Not everybody's going to see it. And not everybody's going to see it, with you. And so instead, you really want to come back to that your own connection to your gifts and the worth that they offer to others, and let the people who are ready and available for that come to you. This is going to increase your confidence in that, and then that's also going to allow you to be seen in a different way than you were before by others around you. So I hope that helps. Thank you so much for the question.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of Leading with Spirit. If you did, please share the link for this episode with your biggest takeaway, tagging me at Holton Healing Arts. It would also support me if you subscribed and left a rating and review of the show so we can support more people living their highest purpose. Until next time, journey on.